Temujin was born around 1162 on the harsh Mongolian steppe, where survival depended on strength, loyalty, and courage. His father, Yasuge, was a respected tribal chief who believed his son was destined for greatness long before anyone else did. As a young boy, Temujin spent his days learning to ride horses, hunt across endless grasslands, and endure the harsh climate of the steppe. Life on the Mongolian plains was brutally difficult, where freezing winters, hunger, and rival tribes threatened every family. When Temujin was only 9 years old, his father arranged his future marriage to a young girl named Bürte, hoping to strengthen tribal alliances. On his journey home, Yasuge accepted food from an enemy Tatar tribe, unaware they had secretly poisoned him. Within days, Temujin's father died, leaving his family without protection in a world where power meant everything. After Yasuge's death, his tribe abandoned Temujin, his mother, and his brothers, believing they were too weak to survive alone. Suddenly left with nothing, the family struggled to find food, surviving on wild plants, fish, and animals they could hunt. Every day became a fight against starvation, cold, and the constant fear of hostile tribes. Temujin realized that no one would come to rescue them and that survival depended entirely on determination. As the years passed, hardship transformed the young boy into someone tougher than anyone around him could imagine. Tensions within the family grew as food became scarcer, forcing impossible choices that tested everyone's loyalty. One bitter conflict ended with Temujin killing his older half-brother Bektar, a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Although still a teenager, Temujin learned that leadership often demanded painful sacrifices. His growing reputation soon attracted the attention of a rival tribe that saw him as a future threat. Temujin was captured, chained with a wooden collar, and forced into slavery under guard. Many believed the young prisoner would spend the rest of his life in captivity, forgotten by the world. But Temujin refused to accept defeat, studying the habits of his captors while waiting for the opportunity. One dark night, he escaped and disappeared into rivers and forests surrounding the enemy camp. A brave family secretly hid the exhausted fugitive, risking their own lives to protect the young warrior. Temujin never forgot their kindness, and years later rewarded those who had helped him when no one else would. Returning to the steppe as a free man, Temujin began gathering loyal followers who admired his courage rather than his noble birth. Unlike many tribal leaders, he welcomed anyone willing to prove their loyalty, regardless of family or social status. Without realizing it, the lonely orphan who had struggled simply to survive had taken the first steps toward becoming Genghis Khan. Temujin's small band of followers slowly grew into a loyal force built on trust rather than bloodline, something almost unheard of among the Mongol tribes. Word of the young leader spread quickly across the steppe as more warriors abandoned powerful chiefs to fight under his banner. At last, Temujin returned to claim Bürte, the woman promised to him years earlier, and the two were finally married. Their happiness lasted only a short time before the Merkit tribe launched a surprise attack and kidnapped Bürte during the night. Heartbroken but determined, Temujin refused to abandon his wife and immediately sought help from powerful allies. Together with Ong Khan and his childhood blood brother Jamuka, Temujin launched a daring rescue mission against the Merkits. The attack succeeded, and Bürte was rescued, strengthening Temujin's reputation as a leader who never abandoned his own people. As his influence continued to grow, Temujin introduced a revolutionary idea that challenged centuries of tribal tradition. Instead of rewarding noble families, he promoted warriors based solely on loyalty, courage, and ability. Many ordinary soldiers admired this system, but powerful tribal chiefs saw it as a direct threat to their authority. Soon, Jamuka, once Temujin's closest friend, declared himself his greatest rival. The friendship that had begun in childhood was replaced by a bitter struggle for control of the Mongol steppe. The two armies finally met in one of the first great battles between the rival leaders. Although Temujin suffered setbacks, every defeat taught him valuable lessons about leadership and strategy. Rather than blaming others, he studied every mistake and rebuilt his army stronger than before. His discipline, fairness, and ability to reward talent attracted even more followers from rival tribes. Warriors who had once fought against him now willingly joined his growing army. One by one, the strongest Mongol tribes either surrendered or were defeated in battle. Temujin united former enemies under a single banner, ending generations of endless tribal conflict. In 1206, tribal chiefs gathered in a historic assembly known as the Kurultai to decide the future of the Mongol nation. There, Temujin received a new title that would forever change world history. He was proclaimed Genghis Khan, meaning the universal ruler of all the Mongols. For the first time, the divided tribes of the steppe stood together as one united nation under a single leader. But Genghis Khan had no intention of stopping with Mongolia alone. Beyond the endless grasslands lay powerful kingdoms that had no idea the greatest conqueror in history was about to begin his march. Genghis Khan now ruled an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen, but his ambition reached far beyond the borders of Mongolia. His attention turned toward the wealthy Khwarezmian Empire, whose cities controlled some of the richest trade routes in Asia. Hoping for peace, Genghis first sent a caravan of merchants to establish friendly relations and open trade between the two empires. Instead of welcoming them, the governor of Otrar accused the merchants of spying and ordered every one of them executed. Outraged by the massacre, Genghis Khan sent ambassadors demanding justice rather than immediate revenge. The Khwarezmian Shah made a terrible mistake by humiliating the ambassadors and rejecting every demand. For Genghis Khan, the murder of peaceful envoys was an unforgivable crime that could not go unanswered. In 1219, he gathered one of the largest Mongol armies ever assembled and marched west toward the Khwarezmian Empire. Many believed the vast deserts and towering mountains would stop the Mongols before they reached the great cities. Instead, Genghis divided his forces into several armies, confusing the defenders with brilliant strategy. The Mongols appeared from unexpected directions, surrounding powerful cities that believed themselves completely safe. City after city fell as Mongol discipline and speed overwhelmed defenders who had expected a traditional siege. The magnificent city of Bukhara became one of the first major prizes of the campaign. Standing before its people, Genghis Khan declared that their rulers had brought disaster upon them through arrogance. The Mongol advance continued without slowing as Samarkand, one of the greatest cities in Central Asia, came under siege. Despite its enormous walls and massive garrison, Samarkand could not withstand the relentless Mongol assault. Many soldiers surrendered after realizing resistance had become completely hopeless. Within a remarkably short time, one of the richest empires in Asia began collapsing before the Mongol advance. The Khwarezmian Shah abandoned city after city, desperately trying to escape the unstoppable invasion. Genghis Khan ordered elite cavalry units to pursue the fleeing ruler across thousands of kilometers. The exhausted Shah eventually died while hiding on a remote island, never rebuilding his shattered empire. With organized resistance destroyed, the Mongols secured complete control over Central Asia. The victory transformed Genghis Khan from a regional conqueror into the ruler of one of history's greatest empires. But even after defeating the Khwarezmian Empire, Genghis Khan's armies continued riding west toward lands that had never before witnessed the power of the Mongols. The greatest expansion of the Mongol Empire was only just beginning. After conquering Persia, Genghis Khan turned his attention toward the vast kingdoms of Central Asia, determined to expand his empire even farther. His armies crossed deserts, mountains, and endless plains with incredible speed, surprising enemies who believed such journeys were impossible. Every victory brought more territory under Mongol control, making the empire larger than any that had come before it. Instead of destroying every city, Genghis often spared those that surrendered peacefully, rewarding obedience instead of resistance. He established a strict legal code known as the Yasa, creating order across lands inhabited by many different cultures. Trade flourished as merchants traveled safely across the famous Silk Road under Mongol protection. For the first time in generations, travelers could cross enormous distances with far less fear of bandits or local wars. Messengers rode between distant cities using a remarkable relay system that allowed information to travel faster than ever before. Although feared as a conqueror, Genghis Khan also understood that communication, trade, and discipline were essential for ruling a vast empire. His generals continued expanding westward, defeating armies that had once seemed invincible. Kingdom after kingdom fell before the unstoppable Mongol advance. Stories of the Mongol army spread across Europe and Asia, terrifying rulers long before the soldiers themselves arrived. Many cities surrendered without fighting, after hearing what had happened to those who resisted. Even distant kingdoms began preparing for an invasion that might never come, simply because of Genghis Khan's growing reputation. Despite decades of constant warfare, the great Khan never abandoned the simple lifestyle of the Mongolian steppe. He preferred riding across open grasslands to living permanently inside magnificent palaces. In 1227, while leading another military campaign, Genghis Khan suddenly became seriously ill. The exact cause of his death remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Some believed he died from illness, while others claimed he was injured during the campaign. Before his death, he ordered his sons to continue expanding the empire after he was gone. His final wishes were kept secret, and preparations for his burial began immediately. According to legend, the funeral procession hid every trace of his final resting place. More than 800 years later, historians still do not know where Genghis Khan was buried. His empire continued growing under his descendants, eventually becoming the largest continuous land empire in human history. The orphan abandoned on the Mongolian steppe had changed the course of history forever.